co-host, Barry Sinewitz. Can we put that back up there? I just want people to see that. I told people one time I had hair and it wasn't all white. So see, there I am. I'm not lying. It's a little thin on top, I realize, but anyway, it is Ray Stowey. God bless him. So anyway, I wanted to show you that picture because I found it not too long ago, and that was taken in 1995 on the show. So you can tell how many years we've been on. So anyway, welcome to You Make the Call. Thanks for joining us. I think we got a pretty heavy show tonight in terms of what we're going to talk about. But what we always like to do is keep you informed of what's going on, and that's what the show is all about anyway. So I'm just gonna let you know what the candidates, who's going to be on the ballot in November 5th, first Tuesday in November. So I wanted to point them out to you now so that you can start thinking about these candidates and whatnot. So the one good thing is we've got a couple of contested races that are going to be interesting. So we'll get into that in a minute. But we have a mayor's race. Incumbent Ted Betancourt is going to be challenged by Jacqueline Conway. So no free ride there, no free ride for the mayor on that one. So Councilor at Large, and this is in alphabetical order. It's 7 candidates for 5 seats. So there is no primary. That's why there's no primary election next month. We're going right to November 5th. So anyway, John, this is alphabetical order. The Councilor at Large, John DeRosa Jr., Tom Gould, Jared Hockman, Ann Manning Martin, Ryan Melville, Tom Rosignol, and John Turco. Those are the candidates for Councilor at Large. Ward councilors is kind of the exciting thing this year, in terms of some challenges. 2 wards, the incumbents are unchallenged. Ward 3, Jim Mitsoulas, and Ward 5, Joel Saslaw. In Ward 1, Russ Donovan is going against Craig Welton. 2 newcomers to the political game, both of them, neither one of them been elected at all. It's because John Turco, who's the councilor down there, is running for Councilor at Large. So that's why there's going to be an open seat there. And in Ward 2 we have Jacqueline Corriveau and Peter McGinn. And Ward 5 we have Ward 6 we have Keith Doucette and Mark O'Neill. And in Ward 4 we have Ed Charist and John Salisbury Rosewell. So anyway. So there's some challenges there so 4 out of the 6 ward councils there's going to be a challenge. So, okay. School committee, they're all incumbents. They have no challenges, and here they are: Joe Amico, Brandy Carpenter, and John Olympio. And in the municipal light, we do have a race. Should be a good one: Charles Bonfanti and Ray Melvin. So anyway, there you have it. Those are the people who are going to be on the ballot in November. So we'll be keeping you apprised anyway. We'll let you know. But just wanted to let you know that now because the papers, with all the signatures are supposed to be turned in a couple of days. But these are the folks that have turned them in. Most of them have been turned in and all that. So anyway, but in terms of these ward councilors having challenges and whatnot, and a couple of new council at large candidates challenging incumbents. The good thing, and the one municipal light race having a challenge. The good thing is that it's not a lot of people, Barry, but it's some. It's better than it has been. And with all of the issues going on that we've been talking about on the show, especially the development, the neighborhood issues, 40B and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a pretty good time for the public, the residents, the voters of the city to ask those candidates who come to your door, knock on your door, or send you literature. Probably a good thing to ask them how they really feel about some of the issues that are going on in the city of Peabody.
Sure.
So what do you think?
Well, in terms of the ward races, I think some of the races were brought on by some of the developments going on in those neighborhoods. Ward 4 is classic.
Yep.
I mean, you have a small, close-knit neighborhood, and a developer wants to come in and put in 110 units, which is not even allowed in our zoning. The ward council is supporting it, and finally, a neighbor got so angry that he pulled papers to run against them because he feels it's going to hurt the quality of life, their property values,
Right.
a whole slew of issues. Ward 2, we had that same issue with a 40B. The council, they were adamant about not allowing 26 townhouses, so the developer turns around and says, if you're not going to be fair with me, then I'm going to file a 40B, and that's just what he did. So you're spot on when you say, when someone comes to your door and says, I'm running for council at large, how do you feel about this 110 units in my neighborhood? And I want to know whether you're for it or against it. Now, we all know something's got to be built at the J.B. Thomas property, but not 110 units. It's not allowed in the zoning. So I don't know how they're coming in, but if they want to build single and two-family, it'll fit right in, they can build away. So you ask those candidates where they stand, and if they don't give you an answer, if it's the blah, blah, goodbye.
Well,
You know?
the J.B. Thomas issue, we've talked about this before. I don't think I can remember another issue other than up in Ward 6 when the what do you call it? On Russell Street.
The quarry.
The quarry. Thank you. The quarry was being. We had that. We mentioned that many times. Almost every show, actually, getting updates and all that. This 40B up at J.B. Thomas.
No, it's not. That's.
I mean, the project up on King Street there in the old J.B. Thomas Hospital site is getting to be one of those issues that we talk a lot because there's so much going on with it that's not right in terms of the neighbors, and even to this day they're not being informed and kept up to date on what's going on. And that's why we keep bringing it up. Maybe if we bring it up enough times, someone up there in the administration of this city will, finally, do the right thing and have meetings with the neighbors and let them know what's going on. So that's why we bring it up. But the 40B, I mean that project, I give 40B on them because I want to talk about 40B a little bit.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
But the thing is that that neighborhood up in Ward 4 on King Street, they're still trying to figure out what's going on, and they have no one to turn to and all that. And I know that we could have turned it into a political thing here and got people that one of the candidates running for office was supportive. We could give them extra time in it, but that's not the right way to do it either. We don't want to turn the show into so political that
Well, you lose credibility
Right.
if you start doing it.
And so the thing is, we would offer the other side of the story on this project, but there is no other side because no one's talking about it.
Well, the thing is, Dick, the neighborhood has really been kept in the dark, and
true.
I have to give credit to the neighbors. I have to give credit to the person who wrote that editorial about the situation, because it was just a coincidence that I think the day after the show and the editorial and Facebook and the neighbors, they suddenly postponed the hearing at the J.B. Thomas to December. And what happens in November? Elections. So if people
You're trying
think
to say we had some kind of an influence on it?
not us, maybe indirectly, but the neighbors.
Yep.
Give credit to the neighbors for fighting for what they believe in, and the woman that wrote that editorial in standing up. So, but it's so funny. So what happens is the developer puts up a website and a Facebook site, and I get what they're doing. They're trying to build support in the community for the development, and and the way Facebook works is, you like it, you don't like it, whatever. That's Facebook with it. They judge it by likes, And so they put on there, they're marketing it, whether, you know, they're going to get taxes, it's over 55, and some ridiculous comment about the traffic won't be an impact. And I get they're promoting it, but they also used the ward councilor's name in a quote in support of the project, and this project hasn't come before the city council yet. So you're almost damaging the integrity of the special permit when they're using your name in a quote on their website saying you're supporting the project. What they also did, which I thought was really disingenuous, is because they allowed the police to use the building as some special training, they used the police logo on their website and Facebook site, so it looks like the police are supporting the project. So I find it, that's not right, number one. Number two is they have refused, or not refused, they haven't met, they've avoided any meetings with the neighbors. They have having any discussions, nothing's going on, and then they put this Facebook thing out, and it's a mess. And the neighbors have no uncertainty. They put a picture of what they thought this was going to look like, 4 stories high. I mean, that's going to tower over those small houses, those capes in the neighborhood. So it's still, something's not right.
Well, you know, the marketing blitz that this company, I think what's the name of it? It's
Hemisphere Development. Yeah.
It's a Chinese-owned company, and their marketing blitz is to, obviously, the neighbors are making a huge impression on that developer, because not only does the incumbent in Ward 4 have a challenger, but the thing is that we have, let's just say, we have pressure from the neighbors, again, being applied to let us know what's going on, you know? And so what's happening is, you know, they're not keeping the neighbors informed, so now the Ward 4 councilor has an incumbent, the incumbent councilor has somebody running against them, and then this Facebook, I mean, that's a lot of money for those ads to be run and all that stuff, you know, and I'm sure they're putting tons of money into it.
They're trying to build support, but they don't want any input from the neighborhood. They really don't. There's been no discussions on it. And I think that, is there a phone call?
We got a call?
We got a call?
Okay. Yeah, why don't we hold that for a minute and we'll just talk. Caller, you're on.
Okay, let me mute my TV because I want to echo some of the things you've said, but I don't want to echo them on TV. So I'm just listening to some of your comments about the J.B. Thomas, and I saw the...
Can you just speak up just a little bit?
Oh, sure. Sorry about that.
Thanks a lot.
No, I've been listening to your comments about the J.B. Thomas King Street development, and I saw today the Facebook post and the new website that the developer created, and it just it all seems kind of like a joke and not well designed on their part. Many of the statements that they put on there just aren't factual. They've made the comments of no impact on schools and no impact on traffic, etc. And I've seen other Peabody members. I am on Ellsworth Road. I've seen other Peabody residents who've made the comments of, oh, it sounds much better than the eyesore, but I think many are simply believing what the developer has stated. And as those of us who live in the area know, that much of what the developer stated just simply, it's not factual. Those of us who've been attending the meetings know that it's not factual. So I don't want to get into conspiracy theories about elections and things like that, but I'm bothered by what's being put out there.
Yeah,
and I'll stop chatting.
Can I respond?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So first of all, those comments are disingenuous because we know something's going to be built there, and it has to stay within the character of the neighborhood, not 110 units with tandem parking, and you're going to have people parked all over your neighborhood, and it's going to be 4 stories high and towering over these houses. So for somebody to say that, it's really not fair. They can build now. They can build single-family and two-family homes there. I don't understand why this city's entertaining this project in any other shape or form, changing zoning, non-conforming use, and they can be denied. So, and then they can build. So that's my take on it.
And I agree, and it was, I think it was at the last show, you had made the comment about, we worry about the affordable housing, but there's some basic simple math there of, sure, we put this in, which gets us closer to the 10%, but now we've added, 110 units that take us away from the 10%.
Yeah, and $400,000 per unit, I don't know if I'd call that affordable. I don't know about you.
No, I would not.
For a condominium?
And it's for 55 and older, so I don't know, unless people have a lot of savings and, wealth they've accumulated over the years, I don't, seniors...
I don't know of any, I'm sorry, I have one friend who retired at 55. He made some really wise choices in life. Anyone I know who's 55 is working, and that too I feel is disingenuous on the part of the developer with... Well, I'm actually insulted by the website that they created because I think they thought we'd be wowed by it, and it's not a particularly impressive website. But one of the things they also posted on the website was that this would be a 55 and over community,
right.
Which, as we all know, that's not the case.
Well, you know what's disingenuous, really, caller, too? A project like that will not only... is intrusive into the neighborhood because it actually transforms the neighborhood. It changes it. And, if they go 4 stories, that's going to be the highest building in that area. And just to be honest with you, transforming a neighborhood doesn't increase people's quality of life, does it? No. It just doesn't. And to say that the traffic impacts will be minimal is really foolish. I remember one time trying to get up King Street in the winter in icy conditions, and my tires weren't the best, so I slid down King Street right into oncoming traffic on Lowell Street. I couldn't stop my car. So I'll tell you, with more cars going up there in a 110 unit construction, and the only way in and out supposedly is the King Street area, I got a feeling it's going to be disastrous. I do. So I think the traffic is going to be horrendous. It's already horrendous up there. It's and to increase the density of that area in this manner, adding another floor or 2 to a building to get more density. That's what our community development director thinks is wonderful. There's a reason zoning. Those zones up there are for 1 and 2 family homes. There's a reason for that, okay? Because higher buildings do not improve the quality of life of people who live in an area like that, in a neighborhood like that. There's a reason for that. But, the newer people, I'll be right off in a minute. The newer people that are doing the running the city and, the newer people that are coming in with these development ideas, they don't know about the past. They don't know why things are the way they are. They just think, oh, they're old-fashioned, they got to be changed. There's a reason for a lot of things that are happening in the city, and the reasons are solid. And so I agree with you. A lot of the stuff that was in that Facebook page was, not true. But the people up in Ward 4 got to be proud of themselves because this company now has gone to Facebook to try to turn public opinion their way. So the people up there are making an impact and a dent into this.
I found that part particularly interesting. That's an interesting approach for a developer such as this, one with a lot of money behind him that he felt. And again, personally, I felt a little bit insulted, but then I felt it also spoke to the developer of. There is this desperation on their part.
I was going to say, you have to ask yourself the question: why is he doing this? Why are they doing that? And that's
because he doesn't have to. I mean, per the laws, per his purchase, he's got things on his side. I say he because I looked into the developer. But coming back a little bit to sort of like the history, and I hate that I'm now at a point where I think about, these young people today. There was once a time when in certain neighborhoods, no building could be built higher than the spire of the local church.
That's true. That's true.
And I would like for that to be, because I believe it's an Episcopal church. I'm not a churchgoer, but right on the corner there.
Yep.
I think that would be reasonable. And then, two, I grew up in Malden, didn't know much about Peabody when I bought my house, but I've grown to love this neighborhood because I grew up in a much more congested area that was, it was nice enough, but having Emerson Park and the schools and the skateboard park and the dog park and wonderful neighbors who walk their dogs regularly. I love this street.
That's why you're living there, right?
It wasn't why I bought here.
Yeah.
I just bought here because I didn't know much about it.
And they want to change it now with all these.
And another point that I just want to add, and I don't want to keep up your phone lines or tie up your phone lines, a lot of the reports talk about, I think it was, I want to say Care One. What was the name of the owner of the property most previously?
Oh,
Kindred Health?
Kindred, was it
Kindred Hospital.
No, it was Kindred previously, but the name that keeps being mentioned was the
There was
the more
another,
recent one.
Yeah.
When I purchased here, it was Kindred.
Okay.
But they keep mentioning the more recent one, which was
only
in
there
place
a year and a half or 2
year
years.
and a half, 2
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Kindred was here for quite a while, and the studies that the developer did was based on hospital. When I moved here and it was Kindred, that was more of a rehab facility.
It was a rehab,
I don't
correct.
know of anyone who have gone there in the case of an emergency, even though they had an emergency room. That's not what it was for a neighborhood. We didn't have ambulances rushing down our street. If someone needed an ambulance, they went to Leahy or they went to Salem.
Right, right.
So that part of the study, too, was disingenuous.
Okay.
But again, coming back to, I feel that the developer, they seem desperate, which I don't know why they are based on what our mayor and councilors are saying of that, we may have to do whatever. But to me, it seems like the developer's a bit desperate right now.
all right.
I agree.
So
Thank
with
you.
that, I'll hang up and hope
Thank-
others call in.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We have another one? I don't know if
I don't know if
they might not have,
If they
we
can-
have it? They're still here? Okay. Caller, you're on.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Hi. I'd like to address a question to Barry. Will you turn down the television? I'd like to address the question to Barry or Dick.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
The property there, I believe, is zoned non-conforming use. Am I correct in that?
You're correct. It predates the zoning.
It predates the zoning, so this is non-conforming use. And what is the maybe the viewers would like to know, what happens when a proposal comes in front of land that is zoned non-conforming use? What does the law allow?
It's supposed to revert back to what the area is. So in my opinion, it should revert back to an R1 and R2, because that's what surrounds your whole area is R1 and R2, single family and two family homes. So if that goes away, it should revert back to it. So they technically, if the hospital goes away and they're not using a hospital or rehab or whatever it is, if it goes to residential, that's a totally different use and it should revert back to the original zoning.
So
the
this is both city and state law. Am I right, Bruce? I mean, Barry?
I don't know if it's just, I don't know exactly
Well,
how if it's state.
usually it's
a city.
state- Yeah, it's a
It's a
city
city.
thing.
But I'm
Usually-
sure there
I
are
believe
something
it's a
with the state.
You know, I believe it's a state law as
Okay,
well.
could
all
be.
right, okay.
Okay, but I have a second point.
Go ahead.
Now they're talking about doing the property under a special permit, and the present zoning does not allow for that kind of construction. Am I right? Under special permit, under R2 zoning.
It does not allow it.
Yeah, they're going to change, they want to change the zoning. They wanted to.
So they have to change the zoning first then.
Well, look at it. Can I
Go ahead.
So first they wanted to change it to an R4, which would have allowed the condominiums. And for some reason that died on the vine, because then they would have had, you can't just take that one property and make it R4, because when you make it R4, it allows convenience stores and restaurants and all sorts of use. So they couldn't kind of figure how to do that. So then that went out the window, and then it kind of just went away for a while. Now I'm hearing they're coming in somewhere. There's only two other ways they can come in. It's a non-conforming use. Somehow the lawyer's going to make a case for somehow that they can still have it. Or the other would be possibly what they call a cluster zoning, which I don't think it applies there either, because that involves having a lot of open space, and asphalt is an open space, and recreation and parks and stuff. So I don't know what they're coming in on of, and I guess, sir, the point is there's been no transparency here of what they're doing. No meetings.
One more. I have another point.
Yep.
What about the city solicitor? Has he given any opinion on this?
I can't answer that question. I might get myself in trouble. No,
should the
I'm sorry.
Or should the council request a opinion?
Well, you know, you have to have faith in your city solicitor. And my experience was I disagreed with him a lot. And my thing was I wouldn't want his opinion, but that's just me. Maybe other city councilors think more of him than I did. But we had our differences. We didn't kind of see eye to eye on a lot of things. But I always say, I always listen to the lawyer I pay. That's
okay.
rule. You always listen to that rule.
Okay. Barry, my last point. If the council, in their unwisdom,
This is what?
in their unwisdom, decides to pass this,
Yes.
I'm using this term, unwisdom. If they're in their unwisdom decide to pass this proposal, what recourse does the neighborhood or the citizens of Peabody have to overturn this kind of vote that looks like it's already been decided, to be honest?
Well, if it's a
it looks
special
like it's already baked in the cake.
if it's a special permit, people have a right to appeal it within so many days. I don't know if it's 30 or 45 days. And
Appeal to who?
You'd go to court.
You go to court.
Which means that costs money, right? And you're going
Right.
to have to get people together and get lawyers and this, and you have to fight that battle in court. And whether there's a will to do that, I don't know. I think this is my opinion, what they'll do is, first it was 150, now it's 110. And they're going to keep, I've heard some people say, well, 65 would be a good number. But it's still not allowed in the zoning. So unless the neighborhood coalesces and say, okay, we'll agree to some concoction to allow 65 units in there, that's what's going to happen. They're going to try to settle at a lower number. And if not, then let them go develop someplace else, you know?
Okay, caller, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll see you in December.
Yes.
Like the
Right
song
after
says.
the election, sir. Right
After
after
the election.
Right after the election.
Have a good night.
You too.
You too. Thanks for the call. Gentlemen, a new term, unwisdom.
I like that.
I like it, but I guess he wanted to know the final way of making this go away or whatever.
Unwisdom.
The best
I like
thing
that.
is it's coming up November 5th. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is why we're always begging voters to go out and make the bad guys pay the price, and you make them pay the price at the ballot box. If they're unopposed, don't vote for them. Blank them. If they're opposed, let them know by voting for the other guy that you want changes in the way they think. That's the only way you can do it at this point. But and one of the things that I think councilors are really dumb about, present company excluded. But one of the things that I think that what councilors were really dumb about, they don't have a pulse on how people think and what the residents and the voters of this city, the citizens of this city want, how they think. what they think's important to them. They have no clue, and they don't spend any time trying to find out. And that's why a lot of these councilors go along to get along. They don't have a roadmap, a plan. They just, they go along with the power structure because everybody's voting for, and as we've said on this show before, their decisions impact us all. And sometimes in very ugly ways. Ugly ways.
Dick, it takes courage.
Of course
to
it does.
stand up under pressure
Then they ought to
and say no. I don't
stand down. These councils
Well-
that don't have courage, stand down. Go away. You won't be missed,
Well-
and you will do the city a favor.
And just like we said before, when these people come to your homes up in the King Street area, ask them outright, are you supporting this project? And we already know the Ward 4 councilor is. I think the Ward 1 councilor said in the paper that he thinks it's the best use 55 and older, so he's supporting it. So you have decisions to make. I mean, if I was living in that neighborhood, I would ask every single one of them where they stand. And if I didn't get the answer I wanted, I'm voting the other way.
Okay, we do have another call, so let's just take it. Caller, you're on.
It's my favorite TV show of all time.
You better be on the mark tonight.
Yeah.
Yes, the plant's been watered, so we don't have to go near the plant. That's all taken care of. What do you think of the King Street?
I've been listening to the show, and the first thing I picked up was you're not a very good driver, Dick.
Okay.
You need to learn to turn into the skid.
Well, I did, but my tires were so bald that it didn't matter. I had to hit the curb and go over the curb to stop the car. So I decided that maybe I'll get lucky and not get hit, and I was. I was lucky I didn't get hit, but anyway. So what do you think of that? That's almost your neighborhood. What do you hear about that project up on King Street, the old J.B. Thomas project? You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the city ought to buy it with the 1% tax thing. They have extra money to buy land or whatever. Just make it open space.
It's funny you say that, caller. I just had learned, I saw in the paper, there was a real estate transfer that the city of Peabody bought another property down on College Street for $300,000. They bought the old Clark Barrel Company or something
I know, yeah.
for $300,000. I was like,
For housing, probably more.
I don't know what the plan is,
Probably
but
for more housing,
I
I'll
thought we
bet.
were through. I thought we learned our lesson buying real estate, but that's here nor there.
But so you would turn it into open space?
Well, yeah. Well, the other thing I would probably, the Rousselet air quality issue. You're on the 4th floor of that $400,000 condominium, and you open your window, and it's like, oh my God, what is that smell?
Point. Very good point.
Very good. Sometimes you do come up with good points.
That's why it's affordable. You get the smell.
But I never thought about that. Coming into the building a few weeks ago,
pretty
we
bad.
needed gas masks to get in here, and that's a good point.
I get that smell. I mean, I'm miles and miles away, and I smell it.
Yeah. But the thing is that a building that size that they're talking about is going to change the character of that neighborhood, and no one should have to live through, complete transformation of a neighborhood to satisfy some developer's dream to make some money on some condos. I mean, I don't think
tell
that's...
the developer to sell it.
What's that? I didn't hear
Tell
you.
the developer to sell it.
Well, the people at City Hall need to watch out for us, out here in outside of City Hall. They need to watch for us in our neighborhoods and protect our neighborhoods. They're not doing that.
But they did it on Oak Street, which is, which was an allowed use. They
right.
blocked it. Well,
Okay,
but I'm
yeah,
just saying.
yeah.
So why aren't they showing the same care to this neighborhood?
Okay.
Because what the point on this is, these are watershed issues that change the character of these neighborhoods forever. And once you do it, you're never going back to the way it was.
You can't.
You can't. And so you better think twice about who you elect and who you vote in and what your vision is for your neighborhood.
Well, I do know that this caller's a good voter, so he's going to be voting.
Okay.
All right. Anything
Well, no.
anything else on your mind?
Just vote for Trump.
Okay. All right.
The guy's a rock star.
We'll see you
All
soon,
right,
there,
thanks
buddy.
for calling.
Take care. He gets his shot in all the time,
But
don't he?
I just want to say this too. If everybody in that area remember this, when they changed the lane configuration on Main Street, what happened?
Yeah.
Everybody cuts through, and now the oh God, I'm having a brain cramp here. All those streets off of Walnut are inundated with with traffic. And what do you think is going to happen when they can't get down King Street? All of your neighborhoods are going to be cars rooting through every neighborhood to try to beat traffic.
Well, yeah, that's the impact we talk about. See, we talk about impact a lot on the show, about the impact of councilors' decisions when they make their votes. And they don't get it. They make votes and they don't even think about the impact, that the effect it has on everybody's life, okay? And this is why they need to, they need to slow down and, and smell the coffee and say, wait a minute. And, I'm going to take 2 minutes, 3 minutes to just, I have a little story to give you an example. A number of years ago, Ward 3 had a councilor, Joe Silva, and he allowed, he pushed for a project that an apartment building on the corner of Collar Street, right before the Redemption Center, the Bottle Redemption Center. That apartment building there, it's on
Stilts.
Lally Collins, and he allowed that to go in. He was the councilor at the time, and people warned him that they didn't want it. They told him they didn't want it. They didn't like it. It would destroy the neighborhood and all that stuff. And my wife and I were pretty active in that area, and so I was very familiar with that whole thing, as we heard from neighbors. And a few neighbors, older ladies, said, my garden is going to die, and I'm not going to see the morning sunshine come up anymore. So I thought, it's kind of silly. You think you're going to hear like traffic problems or whatever, emission problems, noise problems, whatever. And I said, yeah, okay, right. Figure tree huggers or whatever, right? And that's what I thought. And then when the building went up and it was done and completed, I remember driving down at the end of Fulton Street there, and right at Fulton Street, I went down Walnut Street, and when I got to around just before Collar Street, that area where the housing unit was, I said, something's wrong with this neighborhood. And it took me only about a minute to figure out what it was. There was no light in that neighborhood. There was no sun. There was nothing. It was a dark neighborhood, okay? And so I mentioned it, to the wife, and so she said to me later on, weeks later, she said, some of the ladies in the neighborhood, the Portuguese ladies and neighbors, called her over to look at the gardens. Their gardens were dead. The grass was brown, not brown, I mean just, dying, from lack of sun and everything. And the whole neighborhood just looked dark and dreary and a little bit colder than it was because the sun wasn't heating up the air and everything. And in the wintertime was the interesting thing. Snow stayed on the sidewalks of those neighborhoods across from that building longer than it ever did. It didn't melt because the sun did actually melt the snow and help the streets, melt the ice on the streets and all that stuff. So there was impact, but it's not the impact that we all hear about. Traffic, noise control, pollution. I mean, those things you're going to hear about. But it was very interesting. It's very interesting. Like first, the caller just a minute ago, smell. You smell from the pollution down there at down near the outside of our.
A four-story building is certainly going to block out.
That's right, and a four-story building will. But what I'm saying is, it's going to affect something, okay? And we never, none of us, really think about it much, and maybe that's why the councilors don't think about it much, because they don't either. But it is damn important that we put all these pieces together and think about every little thing that gets done in this city or gets passed in this city as it impacts us. And look at the billboard. Remember the billboard scamorama there a few years ago that the city wanted to put up all these these billboards and to make money on the the fees and everything else. And what happened? How many people couldn't get to sleep because of the blinking lights and all that?
Yeah.
And guess what? We don't hear much about billboards anymore, do we? No. I mean, why do we have to go through these failed experiments and these failed things before we revert back to what we should be doing in the first place? Thinking it all out carefully before we plan, before we approve. And I think some of these boards in this city, they approve things. And I'll be honest with you, the minute you hear them, you know right away, this is not good for the city. But they don't think that, and I don't know why.
Well, and
You've dealt with those boards.
Well, I'll just finish with this about this, when we can move on to Oak Street and Berry Street. But this developer isn't too swift. So about a month ago, he sends out emails out to all the city councilors asking to meet with them, not on the city council, but to meet with them to talk about the discussion. I mean, the project, and have a discussion, and talk about violating the open meeting law. Talk about setting up a red flag, and when you start meeting privately with 11 different councils, you destroy the integrity of the special permit. So there's something not right. Then he throws this Facebook thing up. So there's no transparency, and let's just hope they do what's right for the neighborhood in the end. So.
Okay. All right. We want to move on to something that come up this week. Is a 40B project that's still ongoing at Oak Street. It's still ongoing.
Correct.
They're still moving forward with it until they hear about the new wrinkle in that whole thing. So that's the 40B project is the affordable housing project where the Elks is on Oak Street, and they were going to put, what was it, was it 80?
26, well, so originally the way it started, Dick,
Right.
was the Elks had a purchase and sale to this developer for 26 townhouses.
The townhouses was 26.
In an allowed use. It's an R4 zone, and the townhouses were an allowed use. But for some reason, the councilor dug his heels in and got everybody animated. It never even came for a vote. I believe the developer withdrew because he was being told, you ain't getting it. So he turns around and says, okay, no problem. Here, I'm going to have a 40B, and we're going to put in 80 apartments.
Yeah.
So
See, the 40B, just explain, I'm going to explain to the viewers for just a minute. 40B is a state program, affordable housing program, that requires cities and towns to have at least 10% of their housing stock affordable housing, affordable prices and all that. And they call it affordable housing. And the thing is that, so if a city or town doesn't get to that 10% threshold, then a 40B developer can come in, file for an application to do a 40B project, and guarantee so many, at least 10%, but I think it's up around 15 or 20 now, units of whatever the total total units are, they will be affordable. And they can skirt all of the local laws, okay, zoning laws and whatnot. So it's aggravated cities and towns, of course, but the thing is, the idea is to create affordable housing for people, which isn't a bad idea. I don't find it to be a bad idea. The problem is that we lose control over some of our, zoning laws and ordinances and whatnot because, we're not at the 10% threshold. So anyway, that's what we're talking about down there at Oak Street.
So for whatever reason, they dug in their heels. They didn't want the 26 units. And I think the killer of the thing was it's in a flood zone and blah, 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 blah. So, and I'm saying, well, wait a minute. Flood zones. The property you were just talking, the one built on stilts, was in a flood zone.
In a flood zone.
Latitudes, we just approved over there. It's a flood zone. Latitudes was in a flood zone. The one right over here on Foster Street that's on stilts is in a flood zone. So all of a sudden, we're picking and choosing what flood zone we want to build in. So this was what led to the 80 units on 2 acres. That's only 2 acres of land. So I don't know how many stories that will be, but I assume it's 5 stories, 6 stories high. So now, with the pushback, and I think that's another reason why the Ward Council has an opponent. Some things have gone on in Ward 2 that are, that can be deemed questionable in his judgment. So that's why he's got an opponent. So now, all of a sudden, Berry Street comes out of nowhere. It didn't come out of nowhere. They're working with the city.
Of course.
First of all, Berry Street is polluted to high heaven. Just like when a property doesn't sell, because they've been trying to unload that property for a long time, just like Endicott Street, the old light PMLP building, it's polluted to high heaven. So when it just sits, you kind of get, so that's 3 acres of land. So I don't know, maybe they'll go up 8 stories.
They still put I think they still park buses down there, I believe.
Yeah, and well, the thing is, it's not a location for 40B unless the city decides to sell it, right? If they don't sell it, there's no 40B there. Now, I'll just say this. When you have a 40B, it all goes to the Board of Appeals. No one else has a say. I think the mayor can show up and speak, and community development, I know where he's going to say. You just go build it as high and as many units as you can throw in there. So the only thing I would say is the city council would have the say in selling surplus property. They're going to have a vote, because I know in the past when people in my ward had a piece of property that abutted them, they went to the city council. If it's under $5,000, I think the council could vote to sell it. So I think they would have to vote to sell the land. But other than that, it's all the Board of Appeals will make the decisions on the details of the project.
Well, the 40B, what happens is, the reason that happens is why ZBA is so powerful and all that stuff, and some of these boards are so powerful. They're allowed to relax zoning laws, okay? The city's boards, especially the ZBA, they can relax all of that if the intent is to create more affordable housing. So if the city is making a good faith effort towards creating more affordable housing, and it happens to be in an area where, the Conservation Commission, the only one really can stop are the Conservation Commissions, okay? And if they don't stop and step in, so obviously those projects you talked about, they're in flood zones, and there shouldn't be development on them. But because the city needs to get that total number of affordable housing units
It's
up.
never reaching it, Dick. We just put that out there. It's never going to be reached.
Well, we're going to talk about that on another show. I'm trying to find out, when do they take the stock? When do they take the inventory of the units, the housing units in Peabody? Is it at the beginning of the year, so that the 10% is based on whatever they find in the...
I don't know that answer.
As they create, as new affordable housing units and more units come along board during the year, so that number is always changing, because it's not static. It's got to be static sometime to base the 10% on, because if you keep building houses, it's never going to be static. So you're always increasing the number of... you never get to 10%. It's like chasing your tail.
And I think the mayor and all these people testified to this, wrote letters to the state, not wanting.
They did
on Oak Street.
Yep, they did.
And one of the things I don't know if it was the city attorney, said that the developer was punitive in his response to the denial, so that made him go and build the 40B. And I'm like, damn right. Just like the developer who wanted to develop Betancourt building, when he felt he was stiffed, he was punitive, and he came back and he won him total of $1.25 million. So, you can be punitive is I guess the definition to inflicting or intending to put punishment on somebody. So that's so, you know what? That's what the lawyer did. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. But as far as that, I don't know enough about the Berry Street and what surrounds it. I know right next to it, there's a couple of pieces of commercial property that probably predate the zoning that they're trying to unload. So I'm assuming this is going to be more property involved over there. If you're on Endicott Street, those big, long buildings that are all warped and deformed, those will probably go too. because I was looking at that property many years ago, and they were looking to sell. So it's going to be a much bigger
On
project.
Endicott Street?
On Endicott Street. You won't even notice it. They're white buildings. As you come out of Warren Street, maybe an eighth of a mile on your right, there's some buildings. There's Berry Street. It's in behind it. So once again, is it the right decision? I don't know. But if you just allowed the 26 townhouses, it would have been benign use to the area. And now let's just say this happens. Now, what happens to the Elks property? They got $700,000 originally from the developer. Now, the property's probably worth $1.2 million. Somebody comes in, here's $1.2 million. Is we going to get another 40B? I don't know. I don't know what the plans of the Elks are, so I just don't know. But,
The Elks probably feel as though they got shortchanged.
I'm sure. It's all timing.
Yep.
But,
Yep.
The city's working with this developer on Berry Street.
Now,
You read the articles and letters flying back and forth with the attorneys and the mayor supporting it. So the neighbors over there, I don't know what abuts. I don't know that area.
It's an underutilized piece of property. The city has said so. And if they want to sell it, they have to go out for bid.
I would think so. Over a certain.
So this developer who's suddenly developed an interest in the 40B on Berry Street, if those of you out there don't know where Berry Street is, it runs off Endicott Street right behind Evans Flowers, that area, and Warren Street. It's in that area right there, and it's back towards the bridge coming over Warren Street, where the restaurant is. It's right there.
Yeah,
And,
that's where the parking lot connection to it.
And so that's where it is. But that's a little, they talk about the narrow road here on Oak Street. That's one of the reasons, that property should be denied, development because of the density of the neighborhood and the road. The Oak Street is one way, and it feeds into Foster Street one way from Washington Street, and it's very densely populated, and they said it's not a good site. It should not have been picked, and I agree. But so isn't the Berry Streets. I mean, it's bigger than the Oak Street.
No, you're going to have a much taller bit. Well, they're going to buy more land, I guarantee you. If it goes to Berry Street, they're negotiating with a bunch of those businesses to buy those out. That'll be a 5-acre site.
But coming out of that site, they're gonna go into Berry Street, or they're gonna go up to Warren Street. I mean, it's no day at the beach.
Yeah. Look at
It's no day at the beach.
They're going to build something somewhere, but just have a heart to the people that surround you. Like, once again, if we had built the 26 units, we'd be all set right now. It would have been spread out. 26 townhouses would probably look nice. But somebody said, not in my ward. And now you got 80 units, my friend.
And the site, the Berry Street site, is polluted, extremely polluted.
I believe it is.
Call. We have a call.
Hey guys, how are you?
Yes. How are you?
Listen, I just woke up.
Watch what old people do. They take naps.
I heard Berry Street.
Yes.
Now listen, I didn't know the city of Peabody was finding more land every day.
They are. Aren't they? They're amazing. They ought to go into the detective business.
There should be no surplus of city-owned land. We shouldn't be giving it away. I'm sure they can use that land for a city parking lot, worst case. Or they could make it community gardens for all the old people just down the street. But not to sell it out to some developer to put it at high-density development of housing. We don't need any more housing down in that section of Peabody.
Caller, I want to ask you a question because you're the man about town. You know a lot about everything. Does the 10% housing stock number, in which the number of units in the city of Peabody, is it ever static? Do they do
No.
it at the beginning of the year?
It's not static. Every year they come up with the funny numbers.
Who does,
on
the state or the city?
the city and state?
Okay.
Okay, because It's a mutual society down there of what they count and what they don't count. As you know, they don't count the most affordable housing in the city of the mobile homes.
Mobile
up there.
homes,
We have
right.
700 of them,
Mobile
and
homes,
not
yep.
one of them count as affordable housing.
Yep.
The only thing that counts as affordable housing is government-controlled housing. If they said the Peabody Housing Authority wanted to put up some affordable housings in that area, do you think they'll let the Peabody Housing Authority put it up?
No.
No.
Let me ask you this, caller.
But wait a minute, I was just looking. Oh, go ahead, Barry. I'm looking for something.
What do you think would happen if we took the Oak Street property, the 40B, and we put it where the Kiley School is, which they're going to sell? What do you think the response would be over there?
You're exactly right. The neighbors would go crazy.
Bingo. So I'm saying that land is available too. Why do we have to cluster the whole of the downtown into a mess?
Well, don't forget the property off of Andover Street. Those neighbors went crazy because they were talking about a 40B down there on Willowdale or whatever it is. So what did the city do?
We put a
they
parking
let
lot.
the sweetheart deal for Auto Group 1 or whatever buy it to put a big, huge parking lot.
I call it the Day zoning.
Carla, listen to this. This is what's counted in the affordable housing: group homes, accessory apartments, locally assisted units, units funded under CPA, which I did not know that. Any community preservation money used towards a project can be counted in the 10% towards housing towards the 10% goal. So interesting.
Well, they're using our money to build affordable housing.
Well, that's another way of looking at it.
All the group homes that are popped up all over the city, there's probably 130 of them. Those should all be applying to this.
Well, I don't believe they are. That question was asked many times.
Well, I thought there was a move afoot to start counting a portion of the mobile homes, and then it seemed to just die out. So I'm not sure what happened to that.
Well, the city just did a new housing study that was just released recently. I haven't got a copy of it yet, but the old one that was back in 2000, I forget what year, 16, 13, they basically said that affordable housing was government housing. That's what counts.
Okay.
What the government has control over.
Well, I'm sorry you woke up late because we could have had a longer
better
discussion.
conversation.
But since you're so tired all the time, you're going to close the show. You're the last caller. We got about 30 seconds.
Well, listen, I'm glad I got in.
I'm glad you did too. I'm glad you woke up in time.
All right, thanks,
Wait a minute,
guys.
before you go, just remember, if you have 5 acres of undeveloped land in an R1 zone, you can have a used car lot.
Oh, good.
Right in the middle of West Peabody. Have a good night.
Take care.
Take care. Thanks for the
Bye.
call.
Hey, congratulations to my friend Billy Aylwood. Him and his girl bought a new house in West Peabody, so I want to wish them the best in their new home.
All right. Congratulations,
Peace.
Bill. Good
Good
luck.
luck.
Good luck on that. All right. So we all set? We're done.
That's it. We're done.
Thanks for calling, everybody.
Adios.
Appreciate it.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci. We'll see you in a couple of weeks when we ask you to make the call. Thanks.